Welcome to the series on chaos destruction. In this video, we'll be looking into how to use the Radial Fracture Tool to simulate bullet holes in glass. Now, there are much cheaper ways to replicate this effect in your game or cinematic, such as using decals or material changes. But if you need a realistic-looking hero shot, then a cached version of the simulation might be an option for you. Links to the project files bundle offer, along with all the relevant Epic documentation, are in the description below. In this scene, I have a window frame mesh with a mix of static mesh glass panes and a few that I've already fractured. Let's run through the process with the third pane of glass, which is still just a static mesh. First, we'll need to convert it into a geometry collection. So let's go into fracture mode. Click on New, and let's save our geometry collection under the bullet hole frac folder. Next, select the Radial Fracture Tool. First, we need to change the orientation of the gizmo so that it's facing towards us. We'll use the numerical transform entries for this, instead of dragging the gizmo in the viewport. To enable the transform controls, we first have to disable Use Gizmo. And while we're here, let's also disable Draw Noise Preview. It's very distracting. Back in our transform controls, let's set the normal value on the x-axis to 25. These controls are values from 0 to 100 instead of 0 to 360, so we only want to rotate our gizmo 1/4 turn. So right off the bat, our radius is way too big, so let's drop that down to about 8. Next, let's set our angular steps to 35. We'll need more radial circles, so let's increase our radial steps to 8. To make those inner fractures a bit less square looking, let's bump our angular variability to 3. Next, let's change our random seed to 1, so this way we can reproduce the same pattern if needed. And finally, let's add some noise so our fracture lines aren't so perfectly straight. In the noise section, let's set amplitude to 3. And then set frequency to 0.015. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Before we actually fracture this glass pane, let's move our radial fracture more towards the lower right, just to give us some variety in the window overall. To do that, we'll jump back to our transform controls and use the center values to position the gizmo where we want it. Entering a y-axis value of 8 and a z-axis value of -11 should put the gizmo right where we want it. Now click on Fracture. Before I forget, let me jump over to the Details panel and set the damage threshold values to match our other window panes. I set up the other panes to be 5,000, 500, and 50. To give us a more realistic look when it fractures, we don't want the entire glass pane to fracture. Instead, we'd like to have some indicator of the bullet hole and have only a few of the larger glass fractures fall from the window. To do that, we'll need to set most of these bones to static. Let's start by clicking on the Interactive Selection tool. Then select the fractures that are in the innermost circle of our radial fracture. Next, click on the Invert Selection tool to invert our selection. In our Fracture Hierarchy window, scroll down and right-click on one of the highlighted bones. Select Initial Dynamic State, then select Static. Go to the Column Mode dropdown and select State so we can easily see which bones we've set to static. Now all those selected bones won't move when we fracture our glass pane. But to make the simulation look a bit more realistic, let's select some of the fractures and reset their state so that they do fall out of the window pane. I'll select some of these bones here. Then, like before, find the selected bones in the fracture hierarchy window. Right-click and select Initial Dynamic State, then select the dashed line to reset those bones to their original dynamic state. That's it from a fracture perspective. All this window pane needs now is its own internal strain master field. So let's jump out of fracture mode and back into our scene. We'll just grab one of the neighboring master fields and duplicate it over to our window pane. I've already set these up for internal strain only, so all we need to do is position it over the center of our radial fracture. It'll be a little bit easier to do that in fracture mode. I'll just tweak the position to get it perfectly centered over our bullet hole. I have the other three master fields set for a 1, 2, and 3 second delay respectively, just to give the effect of individual shots being fired. We'll set this one to a 4 second delay so it fits in with the look we want. Okay, let's run the simulation and see how it looks. I added the sound effects when I edited this video. It's not part of the project. Alright, that looks pretty good. If you stack another radial fracture with different values on top of this one, it can help to break up that perfect bullet hole look, but it will come at a higher resource cost. Finally, if you cache this simulation out, it might make for your perfect hero shot in your game or cinematic clip. I would highly recommend you do some performance testing in your game or cinematic before making a final decision to go with it or not. And like I mentioned at the start of this video, there are cheaper ways to do this if needed. That concludes this video on realistic bullet hole fractures. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to support this channel, click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. And I'll see you in the next video.